welcome to Real Life on the Homestead in Ontario. I am preparing some sticky cinnamon buns for my homesteading neighbors because I appreciate having their support and how we work together as a community. And I will be baking these with voiceovers because it is hockey season and the World Juniors are playing and we don't want that noise in the background. So I will be doing a voice overlay through the baking process. Now I make these cinnamon buns to give as gifts because I prefer homemade gifts. They just show that much more care. Anybody could go to a store and buy something, but when you actually make the effort to make something for somebody, you're showing them that you care. And this is one of the little ways that I show my neighbors that I care and appreciate them. So I am going to go through the steps and I will put the recipe in the description box. As always, I'm going to be doubling up my batches, but the recipe that I am giving you makes 3 to 4 dozen. So I make the aluminum foil pans that you can get, and you could either do 12 or 9 per pan. I prefer to do 9 per pan because I do like a larger cinnamon bun. But you could also use this recipe to add on things, and things like nuts, dried fruit, jams if you prefer to do that kind of thing. I'm going to give you the basic recipe because it accommodates everybody. I don't have to worry about any nut allergies or over sweetening it. So follow along in the kitchen with me, and you will be seeing this later on because we are without internet. So we're doing this for New Year's Eve. However, you probably won't see it until the new year because we are waiting on router parts for our internet. So again, join me in the kitchen and let's make some sticky buns. We're going to start off by making the yeast sponge. So you start with 2 cups of warm water, 2 tablespoons of active dry yeast, and 1 tablespoon of organic cane sugar. Now you mix these ingredients together and let them sit about 10 to 15 minutes until they're frothy as you see here. Once it's frothy, what we're going to do is add 4 cups of flour. I'm adding half a cup at a time, and you want to mix this until everything is well incorporated. This is just going to be your yeast starter. So we're going to let this sit and rest until it's double in size. But first we need to mix in all the flour. That's 4 cups total. And you want a very smooth texture. While that sits, we are going to do the sticky bun mixture by using 2 cups of brown sugar, half a cup of butter, and half a cup of milk. Now we place this all in a pot, and now over low heat, we're going to melt the butter and the sugar and incorporate everything nicely until you get a syrupy mixture. This is something that you need to do on a lower to medium heat and watch it carefully. You don't want your sugar to burn. So I stir pretty constant because I don't want any of the sugar burning to the sides of the pot. And this is going to be what you place in your pans for that sticky bottom. If you flip the buns upside down after, this will be the sticky topping. But I usually just serve it right out of the pan. As you can see, it's just starting to foam, and you do have to watch it because once it starts to heat up and foam, it will foam up very quickly, as you see here. This is done. Shut off the heat and make sure not to walk away until that sugar starts to settle down. Keep stirring it until it settles down. Back to our mixer. Wow, look at that. The yeast mixture has now doubled in size and we're ready to continue. We're just going to start blending and then add in those enrichment ingredients that include the mashed potatoes. Add it in slowly and mix well. Normally I do keep the cover on here so I don't get any splatters, but I want you to be able to see what I'm doing. Just mix that in slowly, but incorporate the enrichment ingredients into. Now we are slowly going to start adding in our flour. I add half a cup at a time, and the recipe does call for a total of 6 cups of flour. I tend to use usually about 7. I do it until the dough comes off the sides of the pan easily. And then when I'm kneading by hand a bit, I may even add more flour. So really, this recipe is calling for a total of 10 cups of flour. This is why we end up with 3 dozen beautiful sized cinnamon rolls. As you can see, it's now starting to pull away from the pan a little. I'm still adding flour. This is why I have my hopper on the bowl. But if I take it off, you can see it a little bit better. Might make a little bit of a mess, but at least you can see what I'm talking about. I want it to come off the bowl, and I've changed from the batter beater to a dough hook at this point because I do want to make sure that I knead it in. As you can see, the flour splatters all over the place, but it's the only way to share with you what the consistency of the dough should be. Remember, it's always better to knead longer rather than add more flour. We're looking for a smooth, elastic texture. And I want the dough to come off the sides of the bowl. That's what I'm looking for. Well, I've lost a segment of my recording, but what I've done is place the dough into a floured bowl and let it rise till at least double in size. And here you see the dough is beautifully risen. I don't even time that. I just watch it and watch for when it's doubled in size. And then with this, I'm going to cut into 4 equal pieces, which will give me 4 pans of 9 buns each. Like I said, you can do 4 pans of 12 buns each if you want them a smaller size. This dough is very elastic, very easy to work with. Now, once I cut these and portion them out, I do flour them a bit and put them back in the bowl just to keep them separate while I work on each piece individually. What we're going to do here is roll out our dough, and I just make it like a large rectangular shape. The thinner you roll out your dough, the more layers you will have in your cinnamon buns. I pretty much go the length of my rolling pin. I stretch it out a bit by hand. I don't take measurements. I'm just making this as easy as I can for myself. As you can see, I just keep flipping it, flouring it a bit, stretching. It's, I would say, about a 1/4 inch thick here, and that's where you want it to be. I then take some melted butter and I brush it all over the dough. I use my ghee that I can, and I will show you how to do that in another video. Otherwise, if you don't have ghee, go ahead, melt some butter, and you can just brush it on. The amount you use is based on preference. I like to be pretty generous because I like a very flaky bun. From here, I take some cinnamon and sprinkle it on. Again, it's based on your preference. I like a generous amount of cinnamon. If you don't like that much, add less. And if you wanted to, at this point is where you can add dried fruit or nuts like pecans or walnuts. After that, you use some brown sugar. Remember how I showed you to make homemade brown sugar? If you can do your own, it does taste nicer. Otherwise, just use your store-bought brown sugar. And again, quantities is based on taste. So I just sprinkle generously, cover it nicely, and we are good. Then what you're going to do is roll very tightly, because the tighter you roll it, the nicer the rings will turn out. And the more of these you do, the easier it gets and the more comfortable you feel with it. When I get to the end, I do like to pinch my ends closed. You don't have to, but I just find it keeps the buns from just popping apart while they're rising. So small pinch, make the log pretty much equal, and we're good to cut it. Now, when I cut my rolls, I always use an unbleached thread. So it's just a cotton thread with no dyes and no bleach. I put it under, and then I cross over just to slice it. I'm trying to show you, and of course it's not working as nicely as I'd like it to because I am recording, but this is how I do it. See how I crossed over, cut through? Perfectly cut cinnamon roll. And let me explain to you why I use a string and not a knife. When you use a knife, you are going to push through, regardless of how sharp your knife is, which mine are. Notice how it just squished everything together? Compare the difference. So this is why I cut with string. Now this will not go to waste because I always make a pan of odds and ends and faux pas that we need to fix up. So here I am. I'm going to cut each piece about an inch, and I should get 9 per pan. That's what I like to do. Again, if you want to make your buns smaller, you can go ahead by cutting them a little thinner. And even if you don't have even numbers, who cares? They're going to be delicious regardless. Once you get going on this, it does move pretty quickly, so not to worry. And you know, I always lose my string, so keep your eye on your string. I grab my pan that has that syrup that we did, and you notice how it's cooled off now, which is perfect. You don't want the buns going into a hot syrup. You don't want that dough to start cooking. So I am placing 9 circles, and then I am going to let these rise until at least double in size before baking. Now you don't want to overcrowd your pans, and I will actually show you after baked on what happens if you do overcrowd or make your buns too big with not enough expansion room. Here's my next batch, because remember I'm doubling everything, and we're just going to go through the process again because I want you to see exactly how everything is done clearly. This final pan will be for us to have a special treat. It has some pecans in the bottom with this sticky syrup. After they've risen about half an hour and doubled in size, this is what you end up with. These will go into a 350-degree oven, anywhere from 15 to 35 minutes. This is the batch of odds and ends, will not be wasted. All these pans will be wrapped up with instructions for our neighbors. I bake them just to the bake point. See, a light golden brown, because when they get reheated, they will darken up a little bit more. This is what happens when you overcrowd them. The middle will pop up. So that pan will be for us. Look at these beauties baking. You should smell this house. And this is our finished product. It's fluffy, soft, sticky, delicious. You can just break this apart. I'm holding the camera with one hand and they are falling apart with the other. This will be my cook treat. And as I said, I label them and tell my neighbors what to do so that they can enjoy this. So we are now out delivering our sticky buns to our homesteading neighbors. And tomorrow morning, they can pop them in the oven and enjoy a New Year's Day breakfast on us. From our home to your home, we wish you nothing but the best for 2024. So make sure that you go out and live your very best life.